Welcome to Change the Narrative. I'm your host, JD Fuller.
I'm Susie Younger,
an African-American licensed psychotherapist.
I'm also a licensed therapist.
We talk about the isms. We talk about the phobias, anything that marginalizes and oppresses.
As a white woman, I ask the questions white people are too afraid to ask.
Everything we are not and everything we are is because of fear. Through a mental health lens, Susie and I will have difficult conversations with celebrity guests, political activists, and everyone in between. Our mind will tell us whatever we want to believe, but the truth lives in the body, and that's where change occurs. Are you ready to change the narrative?
Hi, everyone. Brian Dobbins is one of Hollywood's most prolific managers and producers. He's co-president of Artist First Management Company. His list includes some of the most extraordinary talent in Hollywood. He works with major producers, directors, and actors, and is the executive producer of the award-winning show and JD's favorite show on television, Blackish, as well as the spin-offs Grownish and Mixedish, as well as many others. We are so honored and excited to have you today. Thank you, Brian, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Brian, we want everybody to get to know you. You told us some great stories when we were together, so we were hoping to replicate some of that today. First of all, we want you to tell us a couple of your favorite memories growing up.
I think one of my first favorite memories will not on the surface sound like a favorite memory, but it was definitely something that changed the course of my childhood and helped me to start to dream a little. Mm-hmm. I broke my my femur in my right leg when I was 12 years old. And for people who don't know, it is the biggest bone in your body. Breaking it is a real thing. And when you're 12, they don't do what they would do as an adult, which is put a pin in your leg.
Wow.
Because the bone's still growing. When you're 12, they put you in traction for 5 weeks in the hospital. You then come out and you are put into, well, at least that's what it used to be. This is the 82. They put you in a body cast, which is, it comes halfway up your rib cage, or just above your rib cage, or your chest bone. I don't know where this area is. Right here. Okay. Halfway down your left leg, all the way down your right leg, which is the leg that I broke, and then you have a metal rod bonded on between the two legs, so that the legs can't move together in the cast. It was, you had to cut the crotch out, so it was like, so I was in that for 13 weeks, and I wore a robe when I would get out of the house, which was rare. And prior to that, I wanted to play football at 12 years old. And after breaking my leg, I started thinking, like, I don't want to break another bone in my body ever again. And I started to watch basketball. So this is 1982. And there was this guy that played for, I'm from Long Beach, just outside of LA. And I had never watched basketball. I didn't really care about it. I wanted to be a football player. And I started watching this guy, Magic Johnson. Mm-hmm. And he was captivating. Like, I couldn't stop watching him. He was, like, his personality, it was like every time he touched the ball, something would happen. And, you could just feel the energy around him. And I wanted to be like that. And so I wanted to play basketball. And I started dreaming every day, every night while I was in that cast. When I get out, all I want to do is play basketball. I want to play basketball. I want to be Magic Johnson. And, my father said to me, and I was, I was a good student up to that point. But, he's like, oh, you want to play basketball? You just got to make sure you maintain your grades because, you are going to be coming out and you're going to be behind a little bit. And he said, so, and I was right on the verge of leaving the little isolated private school I was in that I went to from 1st to 8th grade. And I was going to be going to a junior high. after that. And so he just said, you got to keep your grades up. So for, from 12 to about 17, when I graduated high school, all I did was study and play basketball, right? And it was that kind of those two things, and I dreamed about playing college basketball, professional basketball, and it really accelerated my thinking about what I could actually do, what I was capable of, and what, when I wanted something, what I would do to get it. And I realized, looking back, that became the value of, hard work and dedication and perseverance, because it was actually a lot of rehab. You're 12 years old and you break your femur, and you don't just immediately take the cast off and start walking. You gotta I couldn't even put any pressure on it. And as an aside, I went into I had been out of my cast for about a week. I couldn't, I'm on crutches, and I'm like just barely getting around. The left leg is like a normal, like a Hulk leg, and then the right leg is this little bird leg, right?
Yeah.
I got to put muscle back on it, and my grandmother takes me to my favorite Mexican restaurant in Long Beach, and then she says, do you want to get ice cream? I'm like, I should break my leg. I should have broke my leg a long time. I should have just been to my norm, right? So this is my time. So we go to Baskin and Robbins, and I'm standing there waiting on, to take my order, and I'm looking which is one of these 31 delicious flavors I'm going to order, and maybe I'll get a triple. And I'm standing there, and behind me, some woman is mopping, right? She's just mopping the floor, just kind of.
No.
And so I take a step back, and the crutches spread out, straight back, and I just started screaming, I'm thinking I broke the leg again. I didn't.
Oh my gosh.
But, it's like, so that was all of that to say, that time helped me to see a really important. It was really important for me because it shaped a lot of what happened. Because I like I said, I studied so hard, and I became so focused and so obsessed that I pushed through. I got great grades. I got into UCLA. I actually got offered a basketball scholarship.
Wow.
Out of high school to a small school here in SoCal, Azusa Pacific, but I didn't take advantage of that. I went to school at UCLA, and it helped me out quite a bit. And then a second memory. Ask me the question again. It was what was it?
Well, I mean, I'm afraid to ask what was your challenging memory, because that one just blew me away. What were a couple of your favorite memories? But I think that first one answers two questions.
Yeah. That was. I mean, it didn't start out that way, but in retrospect, you learn, and you look at things that were not necessarily, felt like a dark cloud, and
yeah,
I was able to make the most out of it.
I mean, it's incredible. You're such an amazing storyteller. I have to tell you, you captivate me every time you go in. The couple of times that we've talked you've taken me on a ride. That's amazing. So thank you for that. That was awesome.
Thank you.
And I love how you reframe that experience, because that could have destroyed a lot of kids. I mean, just from a mental health perspective, that can take kids under. That's a significant period of time to have to deal with something so life altering. So kudos to you and your family for getting through that successfully.
Thank you.
On another note, what happened? We're in UCLA now. What's that looking like? How did that shape up for you? You decided against basketball, and then what happened? How did that shape your professional career?
I was the first person in my family to go to a major university. My father had some college, as did my mother, but I got into a big school. And I should also mention that I wanted to go to UCLA because they had a big basketball program, right? So it was this big, this important university that had all this notoriety because of their basketball program. But I entered into school, and my father was in my ear, and he was like, you should be an attorney, and then a judge, and attorneys are, it's a good job, and judges have a lot of power, and like, and he would kept drilling that, and I was like, oh, well, I'll be an attorney, I say this with no negative impact on my parents, just that, like, as the first person in my family to kind of have that college experience in the way that I did, they didn't know much about college. They couldn't take me through their experiences.
Right.
It was only what they could gather from a couple conversations with the counselor, and like, and I don't fault them at all. It's like my first time being in a school that size, and there's a lot to learn, not just about, school itself, about life and how to operate within the university and what career path to take. So, for them, my father and my grandmother didn't have much schooling. It was a vocation that everybody had heard of: doctor,
Right.
lawyer, accountant. Right. So for me, it kind of made sense. So I started positioning myself for these pre-law courses, right? Like, so that I could be attracted to a law school, in a law school. So it's political science. That was my major. And I got a couple years into it. I wasn't really, like, after working that hard in high school and getting myself into college, I wasn't into school, to be honest with you. I didn't apply myself. I wasn't excited about it. I didn't understand it. I was intimidated by it. These are these big classes, and I just was kind of floundering. I was close to academic probation, and I lacked confidence, actually, intellectually speaking in some of these courses. And so, as I got a little further into school, I realized I was like, okay, I got to pull it up, whatever it is. I got to figure this out. And I just started pushing through my doubt. And then I said, okay, well, if I'm going to be an attorney, I better get, my grades are going to have to be better to apply to a law school that matters. But I said, let me figure out what an attorney does. So I went into the Career Guidance Center and met with the counselor there, started asking questions, started looking into what attorneys do. And I was like, oh, this is what attorneys do. I would never be any good at that at all. This is gonna go terribly. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I asked this question now, because I would have been an attorney at like a strip mall somewhere. So I started wondering what I really, I started checking out what I felt like I was good at, or what I was passionate about, moreover, and it was film and TV. I grew up as an only child. I watched a lot of TV growing up, with sports, books, and TV.
Mm-hmm.
And as an only child, it was my company. It was soothing to me to watch an I Love Lucy or a Good Times episode, or the Jeffersons, or Gomer Pyle. It just made me feel really safe. And it's funny, even today when I travel, I travel with my iPad, and before TV was actually really accessible like it is, like, streaming, and
Mm-hmm.
I would make sure that I had, a device set up in my home so that I could watch my TV at home. Because oftentimes I'd be either out of the state or out of the country for work, and I'd be alone. And so I'd turn on the iPad and I'd catch like an old episode of this or that, and it would just make me feel so like cocooned.
Yeah.
But I filled out this questionnaire, and everything indicated that I was into film and TV. So I got an internship. I pursued an internship and got an internship with a really successful producer, and got my eyes open to the world of entertainment and being in entertainment. And as I was doing that, I was sort of thinking about the music business, because I love music, I love music and always have. And I got a taste of that while I was on campus. I did some concerts, or, promoted some concerts, and brought some people to campus, and worked at the cultural affairs office, and booked some musicians for the campus. And I was like, I like music, but I don't like the music business. I don't like anything about the music business. So I gravitated towards film and TV. And as I said, I got an internship for about 2.5 years with this producer. And he was really successful. And I thought if I could be that person, right? His name is Larry Gordon, or is Larry Gordon. If I could be that person, the kind of hopes and dreams of my parents, and they're thinking about what I was going to make of myself after college, would not be so much in question, right? Because I think at the end of the day, they wanted me to taste success and make something of my college experience and my college degree. To me, that meant money,
Right.
right? Being financially successful. And, when I got out of college, I realized it wasn't just about money. But Larry was really successful, and I thought if I could be him, they'd never wonder about what my college degree meant.
That makes sense. This is a tough question because it's a big question, but you shared a story with us previously about how you navigated Hollywood as a Black man. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping you can give us an overview of what that was like for you, because it was really powerful.
The businesses, when I started was, I started in 93. So the business was, it looked a lot different. But there were some similarities. I mentioned music. I was a big fan of hip hop, and because it was burgeoning as a worldwide kind of experience, right? It was a worldwide art form, and that cultural explosion was kind of grabbing Hollywood by the lapels. And so you had the doors open for people like Will Smith and Queen Latifah and Ice Cube and Mark Wahlberg, and also some of the people that were the acolytes, or the people that supported that world, the music video directors, right? And some of the Russell Simmons of the world, and people who inhabited that world. And so I entered into the business where at a time when the doors opened for non-traditional artists and non-traditional people. People came from non-traditional places. And also there was this sort of technological evolution that was going on, in that there was software and editing equipment, so that if you weren't, you didn't have a camera, the cameras went from this big to this big. And if you weren't in Hollywood, you could actually make a film, right? And edit it yourself. And short films became the calling cards for lots of people. And so there was this, like, now it's called a diversity movement, right? But before then it was like urban, right? That was the phrase. And so I was excited when I started. I started working at United Talent Agency, and I was the only, I think, one of two people of color in the entire agency, and it's not a small agency. And of course I noticed it. Of course I was aware of it. Of course it was striking to me. But I'm used to challenges, and I was ready. I was up for the challenge. But I didn't realize what I didn't know. And I don't think that the agency was racist, like overtly racist. I think it was culturally blind. It was not asking the right questions, not being as an organization. They weren't asking the right questions. They weren't attuned to differences, and I had some really tough experiences. And I was 22 years old when I started, so I didn't know anything anyway. Like I didn't know a lot about the world. But then you throw being Black into the mix, into an agency that's 99% white. I just, at some point as I said, I entered the agency thinking, okay, I want to be a producer. This is the first stop on that path to becoming a producer. I will sleep here if I have to. I will work day and night to move ahead. And what happened is I literally wound up sleeping there. I was so depressed. Like whenever I died in the agency somewhere, I couldn't activate. I had no passion to be there. So I would go sleep in one of the spare offices for like 30 minutes and just hide out because I hated it there. And I didn't like the surroundings. I didn't like the feeling I got being there. And as things go, I was 22 years old. I thought I was in love. I thought I found the love of my life at 22, and the girl I was with dumped me. And I then had to really ask myself, what am I here for? And I think that's sort of the key to, somebody told me the key to excellence is asking yourself hard questions. And so I always ask myself hard questions. And I was like, well, what? I'm here to make money, right? Like down the line somewhere, I'm going to make money. And I don't think I could have been, I did, at the time, I didn't believe I could be an agent there. There wasn't one Black agent who had any level of success there. I couldn't look and be like, oh, I want to be like that person.
Right.
So I started thinking about, well, what makes me happy? What would I get out of bed for every day, no matter what? And I thought, you know what, maybe I'd be a manager. I was getting exposed to managers and how they did business, their style of business. And I saw good ones and I saw bad ones or experienced them. And the good ones were really easy to recognize. They were there to add value. They were strategic. They didn't just call agents to say, what are you doing? And for looking for help. They actually were in partnership with their client and a force, value add. And so I remember thinking, this corporate structure is not going to work for me as a Black man. It's not going to happen. I'm too honest about how I feel. I don't know how to navigate these politics within the agency. The politics that I grew up with in East Long Beach was, you got a problem, you confront it, you speak on it, right? You don't, that's called being real, right? I've since learned there's a way to be real and not say everything that's on your mind. But I thought maybe I should go and be in a position where I could actually not be worried about a corporate structure and be myself and let people like me for myself, not how I fit into a bigger picture.
Wow.
Right.
And there was a lot of twists and turns, and many years later, I found the company that I'm with now. It's been 20 years, and to answer to put a fine point in your question, it led me to push and explore and check and move around in such a way. I found a place where I could be comfortable, right? Where I could actually be myself and let my flaws and my mistakes and what I'm good at really shine through.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And for the record, I'm still trying to learn how to not say everything that comes through my brain.
It's hard.
Me too.
It's hard, right? It is difficult. Sometimes though, I just okay, that's what you think. Okay.
Yeah.
And some people just aren't interested in the truth. So
I've had to learn that as well. We've talked about how America is kind of going through a reawakening of sorts, and a pandemic, and yet there's an epidemic within the pandemic. And I'm just wondering how you are navigating that and what your thoughts are. We just had a huge election. Black lives seem to matter off and on, depending on who you speak with. What's your perspective?
I'm just trying to be grateful. I think that I had this. I told a lot of people around me that if 45, I don't amplify his name, but
yeah, me too.
If he were to have won the election, I was moving out of the country and maybe never coming back. Who knows? And, that really loomed in my head. I think it really started after Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. I started seeing this country, and then I thought, we think this year is bad now. Let him get elected again, and then we'll see how bad it can really get. And then as we got closer to the election, I sort of backed off. I was uncertain what I was like, if that was actually the thing I was going to do, because this is my home, for better or for worse. This is where my family is, my friends, this is where my community is. Community is far more important than what's going on around the world, actually. And there's problems everywhere. I think my decision, my thinking about leaving was like, it's sort of the beginning of the end. If he, and I just pride myself on, seeing the bend before it actually comes. Mm-hmm. But I've tried to really be grateful, because there are people living a lot worse than I am.
Yeah.
There are people that are going through a lot tougher times than I am. I sit in front of a computer screen or on a phone 6 or 7 days a week. And as taxing as that can be, there's a lot of other things that I could be doing that are far harder and more taxing on the soul. So I've navigated by trying to appreciate the people around me, the things around me, the life that I have a lot more. I've worked really hard this year. I promised myself that I wasn't gonna take my foot off the gas because there was a pandemic, or because things were gloomy, or it was hard, the days were hard, and the news was depressing, and and really try to steer myself towards good things. And it's amazing. Like, honestly, like there was a point in time, I think it was like early, right before summer hit. And I was so, I was like, I had to like really focus in on not being negative. And I was like, oh, it's social media that's making me feel like this. Right? It's like all the negativity that you can experience and that people film with their cameras and camera phones and want to post, and you think people who have these big followings and these celebrities are people that this is the knowledge from on high. It's not, actually. It is oftentimes filtered, and almost every time filtered through however they see the world. And I want to see the world through my eyes. That's what I've been really good at. But been a secret to my success is like not doing what everybody else is doing. And so, I've tried to focus on the fact that we all need each other. Yeah. And I said to a few friends of mine, like, if you can't figure out that we all need each other during a pandemic,
right? When
restaurants, businesses, industries are shutting down because people can't actually gather together, they can't be around each other. We all need each other very badly. We all need each other to sustain, and we all need to treat each other with great importance.
It's amazing, Brian. That's excellent. I'm going to let Susie take over with a few questions.
I just want to say that I'm sure JD is too, I'm just like living in your experience, and I'm just so appreciating your truth and your perspective in the way that you do see your world and the world around you. Mm-hmm. So with that, I want to ask you kind of an obvious question having you here. Mm-hmm. Blackish is a huge hit. Why? Why do you think that people, and you're the executive producer and you've been involved with this probably from it might have even been your idea. So,
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
From the very beginning, why do you think people are just so in love with this show?
If you go to a museum and you see a piece of art, and you can, you look at it and it kind of grabs your attention because you don't know quite what to make of it, but you're like, it's enlightening in some way, shape, or form, right? I think about that's the secret to any good television show or movie. And, I also think that, so I think we have that going for us. I think that what happened with Blackish is that we, the creators and, my client Kenya and, Anthony and Tracy and Lawrence and the performers and the cast and the crew, they bring something to the show which kind of raises a conversation, right? Causes a conversation to happen where people think about things that they wouldn't ordinarily be thinking about, or talk about things that they wouldn't be talking about. And that's the beauty of diversity. It reminds me of like going to, like the first time I went to an Indonesian restaurant, I was like, well, this food's really good. Experience something I would have never experienced, and how, refreshing that can be. And I think that we came along at the right time. I think we raised the right questions and the right issues. We did so in a way that wasn't didactic or preachy and, saying this is what you should be. Oftentimes if you look at our episodes, we kind of unearth certain things, and, there's definitely a point of view, right? It's not like we sit on the sidelines and say, well, we don't care what you think. Well, there's a point of view, but at the end of it, you're kind of left on your own to kind of make your own judgment after we brought it out, right? And I think that the fact that there is not a heavy-handed nature to the show, and then the other thing is it's funny, right? You're able to digest it a lot easier because you're laughing. And, if you're laughing, your mouth's open, right? So you're ready to be fed.
That's great.
And I think that we've fed people information that made them feel a little closer to this Black family. The most sincere and the most common comment that I get about the show is I watch it with my family, right? And if they're a non-Black family, the family it reminds me so much of my family. And the thing that is apparent is that the more specific you are sometimes in telling a story, the more broadly you appeal to people, because underneath that, we're all the same. We have tendencies and characteristics. We care across cultures, across state lines and geopolitical application. We all kind of care about the same thing at the end of the day. We all want, to live healthy, happy lives. And we all have challenges. And at the core of Blackish is kind of like in the pilot, there was, what we talked a lot about, and, Kenya did such a good job with, is that what he saw in his family was, his descendants, his kids. And he was like, these are watered down versions of me. Like, did I not raise these kids the right way? Right. But your successors, the next generation, every generation's felt that way about the following generation that followed them, right? And they all wonder about them, right? But that's growth. Yeah. That's expansion. That's learning. And so we hit some universal elements, and we kept hitting those over and over again, whether we really knew it or not. And we wound up speaking to a lot of people, and there was a talented writing staff, and still is, that was able to execute those concepts over and over again, and spoke to people really loudly.
Mm-hmm.
It's genius.
It really is. And, it also speaks to what you were saying about community and about connection. And by keeping the story in a linear way, it really expands, and everyone can see ways that they can locate themselves and their own experience. You know, you said something that I really loved, which is, you know, Brian and I know each other from when I was a television agent and he was a manager. And my MO was always to put something on the air that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I was always like, what is not on the air? What can I do? So I'm wondering for you now, with all that you're doing, how do you ensure that there is diversity in Hollywood and in the shows that you're now creating and producing and the talent that you choose to represent?
Well, you know, look, I'm not creating many shows. It's not my role. The things that I get involved with as a producer or, you know, or the people that I'm managing, what I'm looking for is distinction. I'm looking for people who are authentic. It's kind of an overused word these days, but it really applies. People who are kind of being themselves, not trying to be somebody else, not, you know, stealing or borrowing or being so influenced by. Of course, we all get influenced by. There's people that we look up to and people we aspire to, but you know, what you know, as an artist, what you want is to find that thing that, you know, the part of you that you really feel good about every day, that you can look yourself in the mirror and you have integrity behind every day. Mm-hmm. And so part of my job is when I come across these people, these individuals, these artists, is to protect that and guide them towards the people and the projects that will allow them to amplify that, right? And those things that allow people to see that genuine, the thing that I saw in them to begin with. And, you know, I back to my agency days, one of the problems that I had was, I think I told you the story. There was a director, music video director, who directed this really great music video, hip hop music video. And it was different than everything else that was on the air at that time. It was like I said, the early days of like music videos for hip hop, and when everybody was like tuned in to what's the music video look like. And UTA represented this director. He wasn't a name, but he was talented, I thought, and he had a style and a look and a kind of signature. And I remember coming across his demo reel, and I was like, you guys represent this person. You represent this director, and I'm like looking at who represents him, who's the agent in charge, and he spoke to me, right? He was part of my world. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I knew then, and I know more now, is that when it comes to representing artists, people, you know, like the community that you're trying to present to doesn't really know. They think they know. You know, they buy certain things and they, you know, there's certain things that they want, but you know, they don't really know what's great oftentimes. They have to be convinced or shown or presented things, and they have to be able to see, oh, that's what it is.
Yep.
Well, that's where I come in. That's my job, right? Particularly with people who look like me and come from the places that I come from, because they speak to me in a way that they might not speak to another executive from a different place. So it's my job to translate what I see for them. And sometimes it's not even about what I can say, it's what I can do, how I can present them, how I can, what project can I put them in? What am I seeking out for them? What's the path for them, right? And so then they, all of a sudden they show up in a way that like, oh, it's undeniable now. But I have to feel it. And so when we talk about, you know, me and how I support it, it's like, it's giving voice to the voiceless, giving, you know, light to people who are in the dark. And that's the real fun of my job. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, I wake up every day. I don't wake up every day for people to tell me yes. I wake up every day for somebody to tell me no, right? So that's what gets me going. People who, my friends who know me, I work with an edge. I work with a chip on my shoulder, for better or for worse, right? I work to prove people wrong. That's the fun of the job.
That it so is. And I remember, you know, as an agent getting no all the time. I was like, no became my favorite word. It was like, oh, no, not there. That means I need to go knock on the door next door, and I'll keep knocking.
Yep.
And knocking, because eventually it just takes one person
to
feel it the way that you feel your artists and your clients.
Yeah, somebody said, "Oh, well, you just like to be right." I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." But that's not the validation is, you know, I talk a lot about the film and TV business. It is a business of dreams. It's actually like film and TV is actually not real. So to help somebody to carve out a career in a world of make-believe and sustain themselves and to be on a big stage, that's a real honor, right? Like that's a precious thing that I'm charged with. And to have that responsibility is a great responsibility. I remember there was a time in my life where, you know, if you move around the country enough, you know, or other places, people have this impression of Hollywood, particularly in New York, right? So people say, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm in entertainment." You know, I would demur a little bit because I didn't want, you know, because there's a certain set of people who wear it on their sleeve. Like, I'm in Hollywood, yeah, I'm a manager, and I never wanted to be that corny, and so I would hide from it. But then I started, and then you hear people say, "Well, you're not curing cancer," and think, no, you're not. But what you are doing, right? Like when you represent artists, you are inspiring people to cure cancer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You are working with people who inspire change. And so that's a big responsibility. That's an important role. So I don't hide from it anymore. I'm certainly not the one that's like, "Look at me, I do what I do is more important than you." But I have learned that when my career path is providing something important to society.
That's great.
Artists are important to society, and they play a big role in changing things.
I'll tell you, we could clearly talk to you for hours. I just love listening to you, and I get lost in it. But as we're winding down, Susie, which ones do you want to finalize here with Brian?
Okay, I want to play my favorite game, which is just word association.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you 4 words.
Uh-huh.
Do it one at a time, and you're just going to give us a 1-word response.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
First one, change.
Love.
I love it.
Yeah.
Power.
People.
Could I love you anymore? Privilege.
I know, right?
Right? Privilege.
Dangerous.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's
Whoa.
great.
And media.
Questionable.
Love it. Okay, JD, you take us home.
All right, Brian, first of all, I'm now a huge fan of yours. I feel very honored to have met you and just hear from you, and the pearls you offer are worth $1 million. I so appreciate it. I have one final question for you before we sign off. If you could do one thing to change the world, what would it be?
Well, I think I would say I would I would want to make sure everybody's educated.
I love that.
Educate the world.
I love that.
Because I think a lot of the things that are going on in a lot of the problems in particularly our country, in the world, is because people are uneducated. They're getting their truth from, we talked about media, right? I don't know that CNN is sometimes any better than Fox in certain cases. I think Fox lies a lot, though. Let me be very clear. But I think that, if you're seeking knowledge and you're taught that that's an important asset, right? And being educated is an important part of being a member of society. You will be less of a threat. You will respect people. You will respect your world. You will respect your environment. You will respect animals, right? You will have you will think of your place in this world as very limited, but also important. And so I think that a lot of the problems that I see today is because people they haven't learned, they don't understand their place in the world, right? They don't have self-esteem. And when you're educated and when you're seeking knowledge, that's where I think a lot of self-esteem comes from, right? Because you realize that I might not be the strongest, I might not be the best looking, but I have a mind that's functional, right? And I can discern good and bad and truths and positive versus negative in the world. And I'm not threatened by unforeseen forces. I'm not threatened because your skin is black. I'm not threatened because you have an accent. I don't feel better about myself because I have a bigger home or a bigger car or a bigger bank account. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, our problems in American society today are really based on just straight up ignorance.
Mm-hmm. I think that's amazing and completely accurate. The whole idea of a lack of access narrows your perspective. So well said. I don't need to say anything else, but belated happy birthday.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you both. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, great.
Wish you success.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.